All right, y'all. Gospel artist and pastor Marvin Sapp is responding to criticism over a resurfaced clip that shows him telling church ushers to close the doors while asking for donations, which some say was an overly aggressive move. The controversy stems from a viral video in which Sapp speaks in front of the congregation at the 109th Pentecostal Assemblies for the World Convention in Baltimore in July. In the video, he called on churchgoers in the building and those watching online to help raise $40,000 by giving $20 each. The clip circulated online and folks just lost their minds and have been commenting left and right. So here is what he actually said.
I was taught a long time ago that it costs to sit up here. Y'all don't like me. Y'all don't like me. Yeah. I'm telling y'all it costs. Went upstairs today to get my license and ordination renewed. I'm not telling you, I was 2 years behind. I had to pay $2,000 to get my ordination and my licensing renewed. I pulled out my credit card. I paid him $2,000. How in the world am I going to preach up here and not lead by example? He asked me to give $800. Went in my pocket, gave $800. Because leadership lead and they understand the cost that is involved. There's 1,000 of you. I said close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors. Close the doors. We all leave together. Y'all ain't going no place but to the restaurant. There's 1,000 of you tonight, and those that are watching, it's 1,000 that's watching online. This is a small seed. If I get 1,000 online to give this, if I get 1,000 in the sanctuary to give this, that's $40,000 tonight. I'm challenging each of you all down here to give a $20 seed. I actually think $20 is a lot of money. $20, believe it or not, when my late wife, Melinda P. Sapp, was alive, was a good date. I could take her to the movies, buy a box of popcorn, get one soda, 2 straws. I wasn't cheap, that's swag. I was looking in her eyes, she's looking in mine. Can't do that no more. Now, everyone up here, we've all sold and seeded, but I need everyone standing up here with us, with me, to plan to seed $100. Because again, it costs to sit up here. I got you. See? So put your 20 away, preachers. That 20 wasn't for you. And this is what I need you to do. If you're giving electronically or if you're giving tangibly, I'm going to have you come to the altar and give it because I need to see 1,000 people moving. Bring them baskets. I want the baskets up here. I want to see the folk. Y'all start moving. Y'all can bring it right now. Come. Even if you're giving tangibly, just put your hand on take your phone and stick it on the bucket. Giving is worship. Giving is Giving is worship. This ain't the time to talk. 1,000 people need to give $20. 1,000 people need to give $20. 1,000 people online need to give $20. This is easy, saints. This is an easy miracle. We should be able to raise $40,000 tonight just from our giving.
So the blogs took off. Whether you're Hollywood Unlocked, Jasmine Brand, Shade Room, Ball Alert, they all posted this video. Other people were posting left and right on social media. As a result, Pastor Marvin Sapp had to come out, make a statement, and then he appeared this morning on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show.
And my membership dwindled after my wife had passed because I had to travel more in order to take care of me and my kids.
Right.
So, my membership, it dwindled, but we never lost anything. And as a matter of fact, this is factual. The day I announced the new pastor, I burned the mortgage of the church. I left my habits. I left my church not only debt free, but I left them 6 figures in the bank and put a brand new pastor in and walked away and moved to Texas. I'm not walking around here trying to be a pimp. I'm not trying to take advantage of people. That's never been my passion. I'm serious about ministry. And let me go a step further. There's a whole lot of other pastors around here that are doing the same thing. Most pastors in America are bivocational, meaning they have jobs outside of their churches. The average church size in America is only 75 people. Look it up. It's factual. So we're not getting rich off the church. I am bivocational. I'm a W-2 employee at my church. I have a syndicated radio show that I do every week to over 60 different markets. I own real estate. I have mutual funds. I have annuities. I have stocks. I play the market. I took my money and I didn't trick it.
Money that you made.
Money that I made from music, from hit records. I'm one of the only gospel artists with billions of streams.
And you tour.
And I tour. I just came off of a tour.
Sure.
So here's Marvin Sapp walking through all of this. And a bunch of people out there commenting, talking about how he said lock the doors. Well, if you actually listen to the clip, he never said lock the doors. He said close the doors. He also spoke on that.
That's the narrative that has been shared, that I lock folks up in my church, that, I made them give $40,000 and I wouldn't allow them to leave until they gave it to me. And to be honest with you, that is absolutely false.
Yeah.
Number one, that offering was taken last year. This was a service that happened last August. Number two, it didn't happen at my local church. It actually happened at a national organization's international meeting where churches from all over the country, all over the world came together for the purpose of celebrating the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. People took issue with me saying, shut the doors. Understand, I never said lock the doors.
Yeah.
I said shut the doors. Shutting doors mean that people still have the ability to go in and out. They've taken issue with my tone. And I can honestly say, looking at the video, maybe I was a little more assertive than I should have been. And I can apologize for that. I can apologize for that. But 3 things I need to make sure that people understood. Number one, the $40,000, if it was $40,000 that was raised, was never given to me. That money was raised for the purpose of taking care of the budget for their conference, not Marvin Sapp. Number 2, it didn't happen at my church. It happened in Baltimore. Number 3, people take issue with me being firm with the ushers. Anybody that goes to church, ushers one-on-one, that's the first thing they teach you as being an usher, is that there are 3 times you don't walk. You don't walk during the altar call. You don't walk during prayer. You don't walk during the offering. One of the reasons being is because of the sacredness of the moment. But it's also about security. As a pastor, we understand and we know that churches are being robbed at gunpoint. It's happening all over the country. This is not something I'm making up. This is factual. So if you got 5,000 people in the room, you want the doors closed. You don't want the doors locked. I couldn't get them locked anyway. It's a convention center. But the doors needed to be closed, and there was a lot of pandemonium stuff that was going on out there. But I wanted to share that first. But that ain't even the reason why I'm here. Here's the reason why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is because what has happened is people have taken clickbait and made something out of it that it isn't. And because of that, my church has been getting phone calls. People have called my church and cussed me out. My staff are afraid because I've received death threats over $20 and shut the door. People have come to our campus. They have come to my church to try to cause problems, issues, challenges. And again, my children, I don't look at comments. We was talking about this. You know, I don't read comments. When you got millions of followers, you ain't got time to be reading all the comments. You just don't have it.
Right.
My children do. And they are afraid. And the reason being is because I'm their only parent. I'm a widower. You know, they're afraid for my safety. So now we've had to update and increase security and all the things I've never had to do before because of the vitriol and the anger that people have shown, the things that they've said in my thread and stuff. And all of this is because of a misunderstanding. And I'm not blaming people. Let me be clear. I'm not blaming anybody because of their misunderstanding. I'm just saying in all you're getting, get an understanding. And if I'm sharing with you that the $40,000 that I was trying to raise, and again, I don't know if the organization got 40, 10, 20, any of it. I don't know. I'm hoping that I actually raised more money so that I can help the organization that has been such a great support to me. These people.
And again, let's be clear. Not a dime of that money.
Not a dime of that money came to me. Not a dime of it.
And where did your money come from?
I've been blessed. I've been extremely blessed. I've sold millions of records. Millions. I'm a songwriter.
That was Marvin Sapp. Y'all tripping over $20. This ain't no Johnny Taylor, My Last $2 song. Y'all are tripping over $20 at a religious conference where, last I checked, folk are accustomed to giving. Now, what Marvin Sapp was doing was basic math. Marvin Sapp was saying if there are 1,000 people in the room and there are 1,000 people watching, if each person sows a seed of $20, that raises $40,000 for the conference, for the convention, for the organization. On March 4th, when we had our show, and when Tiffany Lofton talked about their student association, and she said that they didn't have the money for some 30 students from Florida A&M to attend the conference, I stopped her and said, how much do y'all need? Tiffany said, I said, calculate how much and get back to me. Later, she then said, we need $39,000. I pledged $20,000. I then put it out to the more than 101,000 people who were still with us after midnight. 2:30 that morning, Tiffany called me and said they had raised $85,000. That allowed not just for the Florida A&M students to attend, it allowed for other students to attend. I actually just hit her and said, what was the total amount? Because we later went online and said, we want to raise an additional $17,000. The total amount raised for that student conference was $108,000. Now, mind you, last year they had this conference and 5 students from 3 schools were in attendance. Then they asked Tiffany if she could help them organize this year, and there were almost 130 students at this year's conference. Nobody is forced to give anything. Nobody is forced to give $20. When I make the call for this show, what do I say? I ask folk to give on average $50 each. There are many people who cannot give $50. So some people have given $25, $30. I had a check for $19.05 the other day. 10, I had a series of $5 check. Folk have given $1 via Cash App. Other people have given more. I've had some people give $100, $150, $250, $300, $500, $1,000. Last month, we had a woman from New Hampshire who sent 10 $1,000 cashier's checks. I don't send folks hats and T-shirts and swag. They are investing or sowing into this show like some folks sow into a ministry. But see, here's what I find interesting. I was talking to a sister, and she had a friend of hers who was complaining about tithing at the church. Now, this same sister rolls up to the church every Sunday, drops her child off in the church's daycare while she goes into the sanctuary. Now, that sister don't think for a second with the folk in the daycare actually get paid. That sister gives no thought that the church actually must get insurance for the daycare. Now, she goes into the sanctuary and she sits down in her seat. At no time does a sister ever think about the air conditioning in the church. At no time, if it's cold, does she ever think about the heat in the church. She doesn't think about, when she drove up to the church, the security in the church. She doesn't think about the parking lot attendants. In fact, she ain't even thought about how was that ground paved to actually create the parking lot in the church. So now she goes in, and guess what? If her child needs to have its diaper changed, the daycare got it. That sister don't think about how do they pay for those diapers. Then when service is over, she then goes to the counter to get her a cup of coffee. She don't pay for the coffee. At no time does she think, I wonder how they paid for these cups. I wonder how they paid for the coffee to provide it for free to the folk who are walking up. And so what does she do? She comes to church. She gets her a free concert with the choir singing. Oh, I'm sorry. Did it ever occur to her that that organ has to be paid for? Does she think about that those robes must be paid for? Does she think about the church must pay a licensing fee for the popular music that they actually sing? Does she somehow contemplate, my goodness, those drums and those saxophones and those horns, they all cost money. Oh, I'm sorry, when your mama gets sick, when your daddy gets sick, you call the church, can you come to the hospital and pray with my mama, pray with my daddy? Somebody is getting paid to actually do that. We can go round and round, whether we want to admit it or not. Church is indeed a business. There are costs associated with it. But I love these folk who sit here and say, Pastor, can you please pray for me? First Lady, can you pay for me? Deacons, can you pay for me? Elders, can you pray for me? And all that sort of stuff. They don't ask you for a fee to pray. This ain't like Creflo saying, y'all help me buy a new jet. This ain't like that trifling ass Paula White saying, oh, give 1,000 and God's gonna send you these 7 specific blessings. No, it's a whole bunch of unchurched folk who love running their mouths. And you know what? Right now, y'all getting in church business. You ain't got no business getting in church business if you don't go. The reality is this here. I may have an opinion on how said church does their business, but if I am not a member of that church, an attendee of that church, a tither of that church, a love offering person of that church, I should mind my own damn business. But I really am sick and tired of folks in social media who always got something to say. I had some punk ass come on my Instagram. What about the $350,000 you got from the Kamala campaign? Dumbass, that was for advertising. But you don't say a damn thing when ABC and NBC and CBS and MSNBC and Fox News and all of them get advertising. You don't say nothing when iHeart gets advertising, but Urban Radio, Radio 1 can't get advertising because y'all think black folks should work for free. If white folk can get advertising, we can get advertising. If white folk can tithe and give at a conference, black folk can too as well. But see, it's a lot of people who always got something to say. I heard people on social media, look at that. He's wearing that Dior jacket. He's also a prominent gospel singer, a man who records all around the world, who's made millions of dollars. He can actually afford a Dior jacket. But most of y'all, your broke asses are sitting at home wearing Dior and Louboutins, and you actually got a roommate in an apartment. But you got something to say. So here's Marvin Sapp having to come out here, a man, by the way, who had a church, who had a school, who was paying for all of that, who was sitting there providing and helping people. Now he's got to come out and explain to folk what he did. He's now got to come on a radio show, and here's the whole deal. Marvin, you better than me because I know you, church, and that's all good. And I'm going to tell y'all something. People tell me, Roland, you be sitting here cussing, you a pastor. Let me be real clear. Roland Martin ain't no pastor. I ain't never wanted to be a pastor. I ain't never gone to school to be a pastor. Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, she went to seminary. She's a pastor. She's ordained. I'm not. So I'm going to tell y'all right now, if I was Marvin Sapp, I would tell all y'all haters to kiss my entire ass. I wouldn't be explaining nothing to all of you fools. But I'm so tired of folk, especially black folk as well, who ain't got no clue about nothing. I got some Simple Simon, Giselle ass on YouTube, Roland. That's not the point. That is the point. You talking about what's the tone. When you, see, some of y'all sitting here running your mouths, y'all ain't never had to raise money. Because, see, you know why? Y'all used to sit in your ass there getting freebies. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and go there. It's a whole bunch of y'all who comment on our YouTube channel. You ain't never sent no money. You never thought about sending no money, but you got a whole lot to say about stuff you ain't never paid for. So you know what ends up happening? I don't like his tone. I don't like how he said that. Never said lock the doors. Never said y'all can't leave. You don't know anything about that. You don't know if this was day 1 or day 3 of the conference. You don't know if they didn't hit their goal on day 1 or day 2. See, I've actually been to various events. I remember the New York Urban League. I'm sitting here at the New York Urban League dinner, and the guy gets up to raise some money, and I personally didn't think he was doing a great job. I was only there to present an award. And so I just happened to say out loud, do they have a goal? And the sister next to me said, well, no, we don't have a goal. And I said, baby, y'all should never raise money and not have a goal in mind. And so he's sitting here talking, and he's telling the room the cards are on the table, and if y'all could fill it out, take it home. And I was like, man, you don't never let money leave a room. No, that ain't how you raise money. So when he got done, I went to the microphone. And I told the dude I was presenting an award to a Geico executive. I said, brother, and I was asked to do this by Alfred Liggins, the CEO of Urban One. I said, my man, take a seat. I got some work to do. I said, we about to raise $10,000 in 10 minutes. You know why I did that? Because, see, I know it was a whole bunch of Negroes who were at that Urban League dinner who had a free ticket because their company bought the table. I knew they had not sold any seed in helping the Urban League raise any money. And so I began to raise some money. And so all of a sudden, the brother who was up there before me, he all of a sudden was embarrassed. So he comes to me on the side and he goes, we were at 7,000. He goes, my table has contributed 3,000. We now hit the goal. We can move along. And I said, y'all, the brother said his table is giving 3,000. We can move along. I said, no, the new goal is 15,000. Raise the money in 10 minutes. Joel Klein, who used to be the chancellor of New York Public Schools, Joel, Jewish, stands up and said, when he got his award, he said, Roland, you're welcome at the synagogue anytime. Pick which Saturday you want to visit. He said that was quite impressive. It was so crazy, y'all. The Urban League asked me to come back the next year to raise their money again. I politely declined. It ain't the first time I've done that. You know why? Because when we talking about churches, when we talking about organizations, there's work that they actually do. I got somebody sitting here saying, Roland, you so mad. No, I ain't mad. I'm sad. I'm not mad. I'm sad. I'm sad because it's a lot of folk who got a lot of stuff to say who don't have any clue how things are constructed, how things are paid. See, we love talking about what the black church needs to do, and the black church should be doing this here, and the black church should be doing that, and the black church should be doing this when it comes to home ownership. The black church should be doing this. The black church should be out here campaigning. We want the black church to do everything. But how many people ever go, I wonder how much this stuff costs? Now, I get it. It's some charlatans out there, like that fool so-called bishop with that storefront church in New York who wore all designer stuff, who was stealing money, sitting his ass in federal prison. Well, I get that. There's some other people who sitting here, they pastor very small churches that got barely any budget, but they driving a Rolls Royce. Oh, I totally get all of that. But this is stupid. This is silly. This is childish. And it's real simple. If you one of those folk who don't go to church and you are atheist or you don't like any of them, that's fine. Mind your own business. But here's what I do know. There are church folk who are out here doing some amazing things every day. They literally are sitting here trying to feed a ton of people by breaking bread in half. They literally are out here trying to help folks stay clothed and help folk get into apartments and help folk not be homeless. I know many of these people. So maybe if you one of those folks commenting and you don't like what Marvin Sapp did, let me ask you a question. What church do you go to? And what is your church doing? And what is your ministry? And the next time you want to ask a church person to pray for you, when your husband leaves, when your wife leaves, when you lose your job, when y'all on the verge of homelessness, I want you to understand that that person don't work for free. I'm not saying you should pay for a prayer, but here's what I do know. It's a bunch of church people who are out here truly doing the Lord's work for a small amount of money, and the last thing they need are a whole bunch of folks running they damn mouths. Marvin Sapp, I ain't had no problem with your tone. Marvin Sapp, I had no problem with you saying $20. And I got no problem, Marvin Sapp, with you telling people on the stage, y'all got to give more, because there's a whole bunch of people love sitting on stage who love also riding for free. At some point, some folks need to shut the hell up and stay prayed up before you get cussed out. Pastor Ben, I go ahead and get your thoughts.
I had a feeling you might come to me first. Roland, I want to appreciate and thank Marvin Sapp for him being willing to offer an apology for his tone. But nothing else that he said or did is problematic to me. I do, though. I do understand the sentiment. But I want to divide what I'm going to say from the blogs. First of all, with all due disrespect to a lot of those blogs, they're trash. And they're trash for the purposes of putting out stuff like this to cause division amongst the black community. So for any of these blogs that are continuously putting out this content without even putting out the proper information, without giving any kind of substance, any type of journalistic integrity to what they're doing, and they're just stirring up mess. One of the things that God hates the most, according to the book of Proverbs, is those who sow discord amongst the brethren. That's what those blogs are doing. That said, I also know there are a lot of churches that are doing fabulous things. But I feel like if we had more, and what do I mean by more? I feel like that there's something missing, and it's missing from the black church, because it really points to the fact that there's a huge gap between a lot of the culture and the black church. We can't blame it all on the black church, but me being in the black church the way I am and working with them and coordinating with pastors, they're all seeing it, and they're all wondering, why is there this huge divide in this gulf? I don't think it has anything to do with how they raise money. I don't think that's the problem. But I do believe it's a problem that has left an open, gaping hole that these blogs are filling in. They're filling in our culture with a level of mess and discord and dissent and foolishness that our people gravitate towards. So we need more from the black church, and we need more from the black church in the black culture. We need us to assert our voices, take those resources and assert our voices in that space, in the space where these lies come up, in the space where they are spreading misinformation. These are the same spaces that help Donald Trump win this election. These are the same spaces that are helping spread all of the misinformation that we're dealing with. And I do believe that there's a role for the Black church to serve in that specific capacity. So when I say more, it's nothing to do with how they raise money. It has everything to do with how we as Black church leaders assert ourselves in the culture.
Here's the deal. When you talk about, first of all, the Black church is broad. So the Black church is way broad. It's extremely broad. So when I sit here and when some people talk about what the Black church should be doing, no, it's what your church should be doing. See, so when I'm talking about the Black church, I'm real clear on who's doing stuff and who isn't, and what are they doing. And also, has somebody says, Roland, you should respect your viewers. I donate monthly. But you, Max, I'm gonna disagree with you? I'm gonna disagree. On this one, I'm gonna disagree. People are sitting here talking about, well, Marvin brought it on himself. No, he didn't. First of all, Marvin wasn't talking to Hollywood Unlocked. Marvin wasn't talking to the Jasmine brand. Marvin wasn't talking to Baller Alert. Marvin wasn't talking to the Shade Room. Marvin was in a church talking to a church conference. And by the way, for all y'all folk running y'all mouths, the 1,000 who are watching online, has it ever dawned on y'all that the fiber optic line costs money? The streaming equipment costs money? The cameras cost money? The equipment upkeep costs money? That's why this thing is just so silly. It's silly. Somebody actually sat here and said, they should budget better. Derek, that's the simpleton stuff that's absolutely ridiculous. Again, but it's a lot of people running their mouths who don't even have any understanding of that. Money is raised at, I ain't never went to a church conference where that wasn't an offering.
Every Sunday, Roland, we are raising money. At the previous duty station, I served at a church on their finance committee. And during those 6 years, I served on that finance committee, much of what you're talking about. The church took up a benevolent offering, which was separate and apart from tithing and the general offering. And that benevolent offering was specifically to take care of those who were in need, pay light bills, utility bills. We got folks out of jail, Roland, with that benevolent offering. We help individuals to pay their rent. We help soup kitchens purchase food to pay to feed the hunger, right? And so there are a lot of things in addition to what you already described in terms of the operations of the church. And so every Sunday we were raising money. We call it benevolent offering. Here's the other point too, Roland, and I appreciate Ben's perspective. This is to divide us and simply to go after the Black universal church. Because if Black people do not have faith and trust in the Black church is where we mobilize and organize when it's time to go vote. The Black church is where we conduct meetings, as you well know, Roland. The Black church is where we have conferences. And so that is the central pillar of the Black community. And so if we no longer have faith and trust in the Black church, our whole community will fall apart. And so they going after the Black church. This is the bank shot to divide us because they know it's the Black church. In fact, we even have legislation right now, Roland, that says that they will penalize a Black church if they get more than 3 individuals out of jail. Who do you think got Dr. King out of jail? Who do you think got Rosa Parks out of jail? It was a Black church. And so I appreciate the point that you're raising and having this real conversation, because we need to make sure that the Black church that's also under attack by way of Marvin Sapp, but they're trying to attack the Black church. And so I appreciate you bringing light to this topic, because we got to have a real conversation. And we're only 10 weeks into this Trump administration, and so they going after everything black, and that includes the black church.
You know, Mondale, somebody in the chat said, y'all gonna really regret this segment later. No, I'm not.
Look, here's my thing. I challenge anybody who heard about this story to say that they didn't hear it from one of these viral moments and they didn't watch the entire clip. When you watch this entire clip, this is a nothing burger. I've been to churches where they took 3 or 4 offers where they didn't meet their goal. And this was not church. This was a conference. Would it have been better had this church charged people $500? I bet you these same people complaining than paid $500, $600 to go to a conference before. I'm not upset about churches raising money. I am upset in this case with myself because you know what? I heard people talking about it and I didn't go do my work myself. And that made me lazy, and I hate when I feel lazy. And especially when you see somebody doing so much. And what I saw in this brother, Marvin Sapp is not a person who gets uncomfortable in speaking. I saw a level of uncomfortability in him talking to Ricky Smiley that's not normal for him. And it was when he was talking about what he did for his last church. When you see this brother stumbling and stuttering, he's not like me. I talk so fast that I stutter all the time. It is absolutely disgusting that this brother is in a position where he's walked away from his church years ago and never had to mention it, and now has to mention it as a form of defense for what he's done and who he is to prove to people that he's not a thief from God. And that is tragic. And all of these people who saying that he could cut a record and raise that 40,000 himself don't really understand what it means to be Christian. God don't require one rich person to pay for all of us. There's love. The offering is part of being a Christian. And I think that the fact that when you sit back and you understand the entire context, this is a conference and everybody raised money. And if they had a problem with his tone, I'm upset that he apologized for his tone. You should see how I fundraise. I talk shit to people when I'm raising money because I'm working to bring more black men into the political space. And that is not work that someone that is 45 should be doing in 2025. And it is not work that is old, that the brothers who I'm trying to reach old. It is work of everybody who has benefited from the systems and institution of white supremacy in America. So when I'm talking to people, I'm way more aggressive than shutting doors. I'm calling people out and telling them that money that they sitting on, tens and twenties of millions of dollars they're sitting on, they don't own it. They owed it to black men because of white supremacy. So I think the people that are complaining fall into one or two categories. They've never been to a damn black church before or any church that raised money. And secondly, they have a grudge that they're trying to act with black institutions. And this is a wonderful way to get clicks and views on it. And I think all of them are disgusting. So, you know, I think the tragic part of this is neither one of those outlets that went viral and got clicks or are going to get ad dollars off of this little silliness about this brother will go back and publish the entire clip and say, oh yeah, we screwed up. He didn't say lock the doors. This was not a joke. This was not his church. He was raising money for somebody else. And now this brother's getting death threats. And we should never joke when black men are getting death threats because people get killed for real.
So I'm going to do this. See, this is what happens. And this is not the same at all. Let me be real clear. This is not the same. I remember when I was at when Reverend Jeremiah Wright, when his sermons came out, and the folk lost their money, and we had I'm on CNN, and all the folk are sitting here. Everybody's talking about what Jeremiah Wright had to say. Everybody. And I was on the air at WVON radio, and I remember being on the air, and I said, because it wasn't online, because they had pulled stuff offline. So I then said, I need some members of Trinity to please bring me a copy of the sermons. Because I wanted to hear the context
in which
of what Reverend Wright was preaching about. I was not going to go on CNN and react to what Sean Hannity posted.
Right.
And so what I then did was, there were two sermons, and I then listened to both sermons, and I then did a deconstruction of Reverend Wright's sermons. I laid out the scripture that he was speaking of. I laid out what he was talking about. I laid out all that he had to say. And I wrote something up, and I actually posted it on CNN's website. And I remember going on the air, and then I remember John King was questioning me, and I was interviewing Babe Buchanan, and Babe Buchanan, they were like, well, what did he mean by this? What did he mean by that? I said, well, first of all, let me explain to y'all what he was. Because see, first of all, these are people who had no concept of sermons. And then I remember Babe Buchanan saying, well, he was just up there, he was just loud, and he was just yelling. I said, Babe, you obviously ain't never been to a church in the South. You obviously ain't never been to anywhere, guys, freezing. Y'all never. I said, I could show you a whole bunch of white preachers who have done the exact same thing. See, that's what you're dealing with. You got folk who always got something to say about any and everything. So what I need people to understand is that that entire night was a 3-hour event. Let me say it again. That entire night of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, Inc., it was a 3-day event. So this broadcast happened to be 3 hours and 39 minutes and 5 seconds. So I didn't have to do this. I decided to do this. So here's what's going to happen. When we sign off of the show, I'm going to play the full sermon of Marvin Sapp that night. So you're going to hear the introduction. I'm not going to play the whole 3 hours and 39 minutes, everything that happened before that. But I'm going to play for y'all the whole sermon. So I can't be like everybody else. See, I believe in context. I then want you to hear what Marvin Sapp had to say that night that led him to then call for the $40,000 offering. See, that's what happens when you understand context, when these things matter. Somebody sat here and said, CarMax 202, we still ain't giving $20. Well, you don't have to give $20. Nobody's asking you, nobody's demanding you give $20, but you always got something to say about this very deal. Because here's what I do know. Again, I'm going to say it again. It's a lot of folk, y'all always want the church to show up for you, and you ain't never asked yourself, when do I show up for the black church?